Hey, welcome everybody. We are back here at the round table at Hyperbaric Plus. I'm glad you're joining us today. We do this every Thursday at 10 a.m. We have a cancer, Lyme, and mold special dive, and Keith Bishop always attends that and answers lots of questions for my clients. And that's turned into a following up with the round table, so we can continue answering questions. I shot a video to Keith this week about non-killer cells, NK cells for cancer defense. And you know what? That's going to be our topic today.
That's right,
optimizing non-killer cells for cancer defense. So if you can grab the resource sheet off the website, or just go to hyperbaric.plus, click on resources, and then click on the cancer tab. You're watching us online, please drop a comment with the date and time you're tuning in. We would love to see who's joining us. And we will start our Q&A at 11:30 and end at 11:45. We've been pushing way past that and not been answering all the questions. So let's see if we can do a little better.
Yes,
so
right.
I will give you a 5-minute countdown at 11:25.
Okay. I'll try to watch my watch here too.
So thank you all. Keith is here with PrevailOverCancer.com. A great resource for nutritional information if you're dealing with really anything that has to do with nutrition, which is life in general. But he really focuses on cancer and people that are dealing with cancer and keeping their immune system at an optimum level. So with all that said, Keith, thank you for being here and take it away.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yes, thank you, Paul. So yes, Hyperbarics Plus. So we have the downloadable information about its natural killer cells. And so there's a popular video that's being shared on social media about natural killer cells and about actually a drug treatment that's available, for that. And so I thought, well, okay, what are some, food and lifestyle and supplement things that can enhance our natural killer cells? And so I kind of geek out on reading that and writing this information. I love doing that. And so natural killer cells are actually part of our immune system that is called an innate immune system. That means it doesn't learn what to do. It's not like a vaccine-derived part of our immune system, but it just knows that it's supposed to get rid of certain types of damaged cells or cancer cells or infectious type things, virus cells in the body. And in fact, it's very interesting that actually it's part of our lymphocytes in our body, our white blood cells. And then in that area, that's one of the things I look at with my clients is actually their white blood cell counts. And it's called a differential, but it's the absolute counts of the lymphocytes and the monocytes. And if the lymphocytes are actually low, that's a greater concern for a person with cancer. And that means actually that their body's not able to fight infections and get rid of cancer cells as well. The monocytes are more inflammatory, inflammation causing type things. They're important, but the lymphocytes, so natural killer cells are part of those lymphocytes. And so I do look at that simple number just to get an idea of what's going on. But those natural killer cells actually will go and they will attach to like a cancer cell. We'll concentrate on cancer since that's my specialty now. And they'll actually literally attach to the cancer cells and inject a couple of enzymes that will literally eat away at and punch a hole into the cancer cell. And now the cancer cell is damaged, and now once a cell is damaged, the rest of the immune system is called in, and to attack that. So it sends out messengers and chemicals to other immune cells to come get this. I found something, we need to get rid of it. So it's a very core, very basic, thing, and I think it's very important to pay attention to what we can do to help support that. So yes, there are some research articles that are out. A lot of research is coming out trying to support natural killer cells, trying to bring out drugs to do that. But a lot of us don't have 10 to 20 years to wait for a new drug to come out. So these are things that we in sign language we can do now. And so we can do these things. So nutrition is very important. I'm going to start with that because that's something all of us can do. We can modify what we eat, minimal food cost, and we do that all day long, what we eat. So it's very important. So I want to start with that. So actually, natural killer cells are like the rest of our body, even cancer cells, they require the same nutrients that the rest of our body has to have. We have to have carbs, fats, and proteins, but the quantities and timing are very important. And if you have too many carbohydrates, it actually weakens natural killer cells. But then if you don't have enough, like if you go too extreme into a keto type diet, that can also weaken the natural killer cells. So we have to have this kind of a sweet spot. That's one reason why I have what I call cancer keto, and actually it allows a few more carbohydrates in that diet to help out with that. But at the same time, it's important to be careful. We have to actually follow more of a intermittent fasting. So kind of like a keto, but intermittent fasting. And even some fasting, like a daily intermittent fasting, can be good. A short-term fast, 2 or 3 days, can also be good and actually enhance the natural killer cells. But if we go much past that, or if we cut too far back on the carbohydrates, or we go too high on those carbs, we're actually going to weaken those natural killer cells. The matter of fact, proteins are very important. I was talking about carbohydrates, but proteins are very important. Proteins provide amino acids, and amino acids are the building blocks and very important for our whole body. So very important on that. A few basic micronutrients that are very important, including iodine and zinc and selenium. Matter of fact, I see people whose white blood cell counts are low for unknown reasons, and sometimes when we increase those basic 3 micronutrients, that means they're small quantities, we see the the white blood cell counts come up and get better. Sometimes the red blood cells will get better also. So sometimes supplementing iodine and zinc and selenium can help with that, but we have to be careful. Once again, you can get too much. You can get too much of anything, including these micronutrients. And so there is a test. So before I forget, I have a lot more information. This free handout is available on the Learning Center on my website. On the very bottom of that page is this free handout. And then also on my website, I've got a blog that goes into much more detail. A very long blog going into a lot more information. For example, you can also test for iodine and selenium and zinc with a pretty simple test. It's $150, but without it, we don't know for sure. You can do the zinc taste test, iodine paint to kind of get an idea. Those are some screenings to do at home, but also blood tests like we've talked about before in some of these seminars. So, but those nutrients are very important. Paul, yeah, so reach for the mic.
I love this because you use it all the time. This is Keith's mantra. It'll be on his grave.
Okay.
Don't guess.
Assess.
That's
right.
Yeah,
Yes,
so important.
It is. Yes, that, and my wife says that he still has things to do.
Yeah.
It's going to be, and so I do have a lot of things I want to do in my life. So assess. Don't guess. If you do, you're missing it, because half the time we're going to be wrong on that. So fasting and a ketogenic diet are very important. Physical activity also is extremely important. So regular physical activity and exercise boosts natural killer cell activity. And matter of fact, when I say activity, I'm also talking about the count, the number of cells. And part of this activity is because when we exercise, we're going to improve circulation. So when we get red, we get hot, that means that our blood vessels are enlarged, and now it's easier for those natural killer cells to get into a cancer tumor area, which actually is a poor blood supply. And so that area is lacking blood, and it's like now we have a whole new area, a playground for those natural killer cells to go, oh wow, look at that, we need to get rid of that. So physical activity is very important, and on a regular basis. And so there's even some studies showing that what I call HIIT, or actually it's a common thing, but HIIT, H-I-I-T, high intensity interval training, is great for that type of a thing. And actually that's just like 20 or 30 minutes a day. You do not have to go to the gym. You don't have to lift weights. You can do things on your own. Matter of fact, when my clients ask me, Keith, what kind of exercise should I do? Actually, I try to find out, what do they like to do? So if you like to run, 5 miles a day, okay, great, that's it. If you like to do yoga, if you like to do Pilates, you don't like to run. So if you like to do Pilates, you like to do yoga, if you like to do weightlifting, rebounding, whatever you like to do, that's what you need to do. But it has to be at an intensity to get your heart rate up. Walking is good, but it has to be fast enough and hard enough to get your heart rate up to where it's difficult to talk. If you're kind of breathing hard, like the post I made this morning, I was doing the dumbbell thing. Well, I had to actually take a few takes, and I was getting kind of tired. My wife said, "You're gasping a little bit." I said, "Yeah, I was." And so I was breathing hard doing that simple weight.
A stationary bike, a lot of people that want to run, they want to get that intensity up. A stationary bike, you can pedal as hard as you can pedal until you can't pedal anymore. Take a break.
Yes.
And then go back to pedaling.
Exactly, yes. And so you can still do a HIIT program with that. And actually, it's like 1 minute fast and hard, and then 1 minute easy, recover. And then 1 minute fast and hard, and 1 minute recover. 1 minute fast and hard. So I do that. Actually, I do more like floor exercises and dumbbell type things. And so I will exercise for about 10, 15, 20 reps, 30 push-ups, and then I will rest for 1 to 2 minutes, depends on how much exercise I did, to recover. And while I'm resting, I'm doing some stretching type exercises. But I do more like a floor HIIT routine. I've got that on my website also. So stress is a major problem for most of us, including myself. And so stress weakens the immune system. Matter of fact, I've seen it happen many times in my life. When I'm working on a particular project, like a major project, I work, and then I'd actually go to church and work on designing and building sets and props for a Christmas program. And after about 2 months of that, every single day, I get sick, cold, flu, something, and I was just wiped out. And so, but it decreases our immune system's ability to fight things. So stress is very important. We have to take care of that, but also, and that's a chronic stress. So a short-term stressful event is a minor thing. It might even be good for our immune system, but it's a chronic, the day in and the day out. And so most of us, and like my life, I definitely have a lot of stress. We have to take these breaks. And sometimes it's just a short break, but even just the fact of just sitting back and just breathing in and then breathing out. Just that alone right there is a major de-stressor, because I'm concentrating on breathing, where my tongue is at in my mouth, my pursed lips, I'm counting, and not thinking about all the stresses in life. And so actually just doing 5 minutes of that a couple of times a day has a dramatic impact on our body. And science shows, as a matter of fact, I have all the links to references in the blog post that I made about that. But doing meditation type exercises, including breathing, and I'm not an expert in meditation. I just do some breathing exercises. I'm pretty simple, but there's definitely research showing that's very important. And then other physical things that can have a major impact is going to be smoking, breathing in smoke. That damages the body. It affects everything in our body. So no matter what that burnt source is, breathing in any type of a smoke is going to be bad for us. We grilled last night, and on a gas grill, and I keep the temperature down low. I don't allow that smoke, and if there is smoke, I'm not going to breathe it in, and because that is a problem. So smoking any other type of a plant product is also a problem.
I used to do a gas grill that had an open flame, and I'm always getting burned char in it,
right?
Which always is going to be smoking. My kids got me one of the flat grills.
Okay.
I hated it at first, and now all my family's telling me how much better the food is on that grill instead of burning it.
Exactly.
And the cleanup is, it's absolutely clean after every use. The flat grills are awesome. You ought to try it.
Yes, I do
totally
need to try
blown
it.
Away.
So I do grill often, and matter of fact, now the grill I have is actually has a kind of a tent flame protector over the flame, so it's not quite direct over the flame. And I do some actually.
Mine isn't either. It's the tents. But man, when you go to a flat, because I grew up in the restaurant industry.
Okay.
And now I got my spatula out and I'm flipping eggs and and I'm doing it all on that flat grill, and there's no burning. There's no. I mean, it's just a whole different world.
Right.
That it took me a while to get accustomed to it, and I don't think I'm going to use that other grill anymore.
Yeah.
If you want one.
So, so I've got one already. So, on that. So yeah. So, but that burnt part, actually, the blackened, actually browned, extremely brown to blackened food is bad.
Carcinogen.
It's a carcinogen, and it increases the risk of cancers. So don't go by it. Oh, I like that taste. That is something that is a problem. And so I'm very careful. I keep my temperature down to 350 degrees, and it takes longer to cook the food at that temperature, but it helps keep you from burning it and keeps that smoke from happening. So also nicotine. So also there on social media there's one person in particular. He claims that nicotine fights cancer. I can't find any science behind his statement. He does not provide a research behind that statement. And so nicotine, time and time again, in many research articles, shows that it actually decreases natural killer cell activity and what it does, but also increases the risk of cancers, increases the risk of metastasis. So it's a problem. So nicotine patches, are not good. I'm paying attention to the research, until that comes. I might change if there's enough research, but so far, nobody has given me any information, showing me the research showing that study. So, as a matter of fact, yesterday I had another person whose sister was doing nicotine patches because she had cancer. That's wrong. Okay. So until we learn more, and I want to say I can't say that that's going to stand forever, but until we learn more, I do not recommend nicotine, as a cancer treatment. So nicotine does inhibit natural cancer cell cytotoxicity. That means it keeps the natural killer cells from attacking cancer cells. So nicotine is not good. So another thing that's really great is going to be hyperthermia. And so hyperthermia is kind of like, it is a cardiovascular exercise. So you're sitting down, or laying down, depends what type of unit that you have, and that heat is going to dilate the blood vessels and open up circulation. But also, that's part of our immune system response is heat. So we're talking about infections and virus infections, and one person had a history of infections for temperature for a couple of weeks. But that's how the body fights infections, at an elevated temperature. And so elevating the temperature in hyperthermia type treatment, the body starts fighting infections at about 102 degrees. So, 99 is not quite good enough. 101, actually, that's where I go with my sauna. When I do a sauna, 101 actually is actually kind of tough. Mentally, I start getting a little bit confused. So there it's still going. Okay, make sure it's still going. I'm getting confused and hard to concentrate when I'm at 101. But that's where I'm going, so 101. And then I run out of time. And I just don't have time to continue with that all the time.
What if you get a fever from a virus, whatever? Do you take medication to reduce that fever, or do you tough it out?
I tough it out. Matter of
Same
fact,
here. I just wanted people to understand that.
I literally sweat it out. And so I will do everything to encourage that fever. I will put sweats on. I'll wrap up in a blanket. I'll drink plenty of fluids because I'm sweating, and you got to replace those nutrients. But I will ramp up my temperature. I will not take aspirin, anti-inflammatories, or Tylenol, to get that temperature down. Now, if your temperature does go above 104, that becomes a little more critical and maybe an emergency situation. So, we approach 104 and above. Now we run the risk of actually getting some brain issues and some damage to the brain. So, matter of fact, alternative cancer treatments, they're actually, they are going to put you into a tube, and they're going to heat your body up to closer to 109 degrees, but then they cool your head. they put a cooling cap on you for your brain to protect your brain. So, but that temperature needs to be at least 109 for a direct anti-cancer. Cancer cells cannot survive above 109 degrees. So neither can our brain. So we have to be careful. And so the sauna is a great way to do that. And so it's actually, it can be inexpensive. The unit I have was like $250. It's not expensive. And it's actually an infrared sauna. And so I sit in. It's not very big. Matter of fact, it's barely big enough for one person. And it's an IR sauna. And it's the one I have is called Serene Life. I got it off of Amazon. And it's very simple to do. There are some also that are more like an infrared blanket. You lay down and put the blanket over you. You just got to make sure that you have some towels underneath you because you are going to sweat. So you have to learn to where to put that because you'll get a lot of perspiration off of that.
I have a bunch of providers that come in here, and do hyperbarics with me, and a lot of them have red light therapy, and some of them resell that, meaning they're a provider of red light therapy. And I'm a panel. We're an affiliate for selling the platinum LED panels. And I'm a panel person because there's no contact of the body on that red light. When you put those blankets on, when you lay on a red light bed, there's all this possibility of transfer. Mm-hmm. And as I talk to people about red light, they're a lot less expensive. You can wrap up in them. The light's right against your skin. But who else is using it?
Right.
That's where I always get hung up. Think that through, because a lot of people that do red light therapy are doing it for skin irritation. Mm-hmm. They got skin problems.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Which means there may be other things on that than just sweat.
Yeah, right. So that brings up another question that I didn't think about is, and I need to add that, I will do that to the blog post. I will look that up later, but it's going to be about what impact does red light have on natural killer cells? I don't know.
Let's do that next week. I got a lot of info to share with you.
So I'll add that to the list, and add that to the blog. What impact does red light therapy have on natural killer cells?
I don't know that it picks out natural killer cells, but we have red light therapy as one of our components in our resource page. You can go down to red light therapy, and there's several articles. I think there's some on killer, but let's look at that.
That's right. We need to look at that. Yep. Exactly. Need to look at that. Okay. And so hyperthermia. It's also, so I'm talking also about, these are also units, small units that you can do at home. Now, also any type of a sauna can work. So it would be a steam sauna, dry sauna, infrared sauna, any of them, whatever you have access to. If you belong to a gym and you're paying $15, $20 a month and you got a free sauna there, by all means, use it.
Hot tub?
Hot tub would work.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I have a couple of my clients that are using hot tubs. One person is using a jacuzzi bathtub, and so he's running the water, continuously dripping the water in to keep that temperature up. And then, but we have to get the temperature up. So I actually assess, don't guess, a thermometer under my tongue to evaluate my core temperature. So my goal is I got to get over 101 degrees. And so to guess it. So same thing with the hot tub, no matter what you're doing, you got to figure that out.
I get palpitations.
Yeah, well, and so, so everybody's different. I'm glad you mentioned that. So we have to be careful. So palpitations, heart issues. This is a cardiovascular event, a hyperthermia type thing. It's hot. It's hard on the heart. And so, yes, you have to be careful and get clearance from your doctor and or develop some tolerance to it. So when I go on a trip, if I'm gone for a week and then when I come back, I can't do the sauna as good. I lose some ground. And so my cardiovascular system isn't quite as good. Depends on what I'm doing when I was gone. But it's not unusual for me to have to start at a lower time frame and to kind of build that back up over a few days. So so you have to be careful. And also I do take mineral electrolytes too, because I'm losing the salt and the minerals in my perspiration. And then the heart is definitely going faster. And so therefore the heart is a muscle, calcium, magnesium, potassium is burning up a lot more nutrients. So I do have to supplement with some minerals to help out with that. And then also hyperbaric sessions can also increase natural killer cell activity, and part of that comes back to the kind of hyperthermia, and exercise is dilating blood vessels, improve circulation. So cancer cells thrive in this low oxygen, poor circulation area, and we have to open up the blood supply. And whenever natural killer cells, when they find something, they start going crazy and they send out signals like, hey, we need more of you. Just ramp that up. Let's get more out. And before I forget too, so in a couple of minutes, we're going to start doing a Q&A. So send in your questions, and Betty here at Hyperbaric Plus is going to get that sheet to me. So by the way, so submit your questions. If we don't have time for that, I'll answer those questions online.
So when you talk about hyperbaric, everybody that comes in here, when they find out I do hyperbaric air, not oxygen, what's the difference? Literally, the difference is hyperbaric oxygen creates vasoconstriction. And
Okay.
that's what makes the blood vessels longer in the body, that it's actually squishing the blood throughout your body, and that's how it creates angiogenesis. It's making new blood vessels. Whereas hyperbaric air creates vasodilation, the exact opposite. And it's because the nitrogen is such at a high level. The nitrogen is what's opening up our blood vessels, vasodilation,
Right.
and allowing the blood to flow not only further because of that opening, but more efficiently because that whole process actually lubricates our blood vessels and blood flows more freely.
Okay.
And that's what the nitrogen brings to our body. That's why it's we get to the same place, we're just coming at it from a different direction.
Right, so that nitric oxide. So we don't realize, we think of oxygen, because that's what we were told, oxygen in the air, but we have other gases in the air too. And nitrogen, is used by our body to make nitric oxide, and that helps open up and dilate the blood vessels on that. So, and then I'm just going to very quickly go over, there are definitely some supplements that help the natural killer cells to function better, and beta glucans, so are actually extracts that come from yeast and mushroom type items. They enhance the natural killer cell proliferation and actions. Curcumin and quercetin and berberine, EGCG and resveratrol. Those are some of my core basic supplements that have significant actions against cancer cells. They also help the natural killer cells to work better. And so it's very interesting as I was researching that. And matter of fact, even berberine, one of my favorites, even helps with the what's called PDL1 expression, which is what prescription drugs or immunotherapy prescription drugs help with that. So berberine also helps with that type of a thing. So it turns that switch so that the immune system will recognize, in this case, natural killer cells, will recognize a tumor and start attacking it on that. So kind of a summary before we get into the questions is we need to be eating a balanced diet, practice regular stress management. There's other aspects of that too. So, meditation, prayer, Thanksgiving, journaling, many different things. Consider fasting and or a ketogenic diet. So I do all of those, but I do what's called the cancer keto diet. And then also avoiding smoking, nicotine, and excessive, processed foods. So processed foods contain all kinds of chemicals that will weaken the immune system. So, and that's a whole nother area, but that comes back to a very simple kind of a food program.
I wanted to say this a minute ago. When I learned about bad eating many years ago, I'm like, man, it's so expensive to eat good, But here's where it evens out. Number one, I got into intermittent fasting. I eat once a day. And that one meal a day is very nutritional. And when you eat nutritional dense food, nutrient dense food, you're satisfied so much quicker. I mean, you don't eat as much because you're satisfied in half the time. So literally, my food bill is less by not eating the junk
Right.
2 or 3 times a day.
Yes.
So don't eat organic. Don't scrimp on it.
Right.
If you get that nutrient dense food, you're just so much better off.
That's right. Yeah, and the price. I question the price thing, although I haven't done comparison shopping. But actually, the KISS principle, keep it simple, is we want to, it's proteins and meats, legumes, fruits and vegetables. We have to be more careful about the grains. Most of the time they're processed. There can be some good options, and then fermented foods, are great options. And it really doesn't cost a whole lot to do those things. And so, matter of fact, even, I'm actually dehydrating apricots, from I'm blessed, I have a tree, that's loaded this year. And so I'm dehydrating those to save those, so that's a great option on that. So yes, so keep it simple. It's not fancy foods, but it's the packaged foods that's a problem. If there's more than 3 ingredients in it, we need to be very careful about that. So,
Is the example of your diet on the website?
yes, and so yes, I have what's called a Cancer Keto Diet in the Learning Center on my website. It's a free download. So, I'm not sure what that question is. Are those the T4? I'm not sure what that question is.
The T4 non-killer cells is probably what
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah, what that is. So, can we do this while on chemo, dealing with a soft tissue sarcoma? Yes. Matter of fact, my clients, we do these very same things, all of these things, while on chemotherapy and radiation. Matter of fact, all of these items help chemotherapy and radiation to work better. So those therapies, and even I went blank on the term of it, histotripsy, is that the correct term? But whether using ultrasound, these treatments damage the tumor. It's our immune system's responsibility to get rid of that before it's repaired. So we want to support that. So matter of fact, I do this very same program with my clients that are doing chemotherapy and radiation and histotripsy. See, how can we buy the test for iodine and zinc? So on my Flourish, we've got 2 options. So Flourish has and there's a link on my website, resources tab. There's a link to Flourish, and they have a taste test, a zinc taste test, saliva pH, and iodine paint as some screenings. And then also, there's also a test on my blog. I have a link going to that, going to the iodine, selenium, zinc, mercury, lead, arsenic, all the bad, kind of most of the bad minerals, or metals rather, to do that test. And
that's
what?
at Alta?
Yes, it's through, actually in this case, this test is through Rupa Labs, but ZRT is the name of the lab itself that does that.
How do you get to that test?
That's on my website as resources, and then Rupa, RUPA, lab tests, and then I have a kind of a select about a dozen different tests that I do commonly. But also on my blog about natural killer cells is a link going to that test, directly to that test on that. So what do you clean with? And so I clean with, actually pretty simple, soap and water, but also I love hydrogen peroxide. So it's amazing how well it cleans and disinfects. And so before I did my nectarines yesterday, I actually disinfected the cutting board, the wooden cutting board, and it's amazing. I love wooden cutting boards, but I poured hydrogen peroxide on that and it bubbled. That means there's bacteria and stuff in there. But I wanted to clean that as much as possible because I'm dehydrating those and I'm going to store those apricots for months. So I want to make sure everything is as clean as possible. So I'll use some oils, and hydrogen peroxide for cleaning.
A lot of your friends in here use ozone. They got a little ozone generator and they put next to the sink and they throw all their fruits and vegetables in the water and ozonate the water.
Yeah, exactly. Ozone is another one. It helps it to disinfect and kill things. That's right. Somebody's upset because they like their hamburgers well done. So, that's a problem. So very well done. Matter of fact, if I go out to eat and if I have a hamburger, I'm going to make sure that that's pink inside. Although they say there's a warning, you shouldn't eat, hamburger like that. But I'd rather have my hamburger like that. I'll take my stomach acid pills to kill the bacteria, because I don't want that burger overcooked. What are your thoughts on ivermectin? And so ivermectin does have a lot of research showing that it has some anti-cancer activities, including it helps keep cancer cells from being able to use glucose. So several different things on that. And how often, how much ivermectin do you take to get rid of parasites? So, I do take ivermectin on a regular basis. And so I do take it about 5 days a week. And then I take a couple of days off. And if I'm going to be gone on a trip, I may not take it on a regular basis. I do not have cancer. I'm doing it more for a prevention.
How much for a preventative dose?
Oh,
What
how
the
much? Oh,
question
okay.
is.
How often? Oh, how much? Thank you. And how much? And so, how much is the current thought is actually more like 1 milligram per kilogram is a beginning dose for cancers, which actually is a pretty high dose, and that means more like 60 milligrams or more a day. That's a high dose. But it also is potential toxicities, neurotoxicities. We talked about that in the chamber with the dive, but vision issues and mental confusion and depression. So we have to be very careful about that. Everybody's different. So what do you think about electrolyte powders for a cancer patient? I run low on magnesium. I take magnesium every single day, twice a day. I run low. I have some absorption issues. And I also take, when I do the sauna, before I do the sauna, I'm doing the electrolyte solution because I'm burning up nutrients, and I have an absorption issue too.
Do you take the powder? I mean, do you have the powder packets, or do you buy electrolyte water? And there's so many different kinds.
There's many different ones, and so I'm very careful about that. And so the one I take is actually pretty simple, and there's actually no sugars in it. And so there's a lot that are athletic versions that are geared, they have actually ribose, which actually I need to make an article about that. Ribose, I'm concerned about that. It is an energy, great for energy and mitochondria, but cancer cells can use that sugar for energy too. So I don't recommend sugar electrolytes. If it's got stevia or monk fruit in it, that could be okay. So the one I use, it's got magnesium and sodium and stevia in it. And it used to be called pickle juice concentrate or something like that. They changed the name now because they're needing to expand their market. It's not just pickleball. It was pickleball juice, but now they call it something else.
What about this new sweetener, antabuse?
Allulose.
Allulose.
Allulose appears to be okay. It's newer on the market and newer in research, and I haven't found any particular issues. I'm being real cautious about it. So cancer cells might be able to use allulose.
That's not good.
So I'm trying to be really careful about that. Coffee enemas. Coffee enemas, just a blank question about that. So, I'm not a big fan of that, and there's actually no science really supporting it. It's popular in a lot of different cancer treatments, and it may actually help the liver and gallbladder to help with detoxification, but I've not actually seen any evidence, and so I have to go by evidence in the medical journals. I don't see that. And can you do a sauna while doing chemo and having a port? And so I don't know of any issues of a sauna, with that at all. So what about doing a hyperbaric with a port?
We have lots of ports in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
good.
non-medical cancer support, and everybody that comes. I got a lot of people with ports.
Okay, yeah. So I assumed that would be okay, with that. So how many days a week for hyperthermia? So I go for 5 days a week because I know there's going to be 2 days a week that I'm not going to be available, and things are going to happen. But my goal is to do it on a regular basis. And there are some studies, this person lives in Scandinavia, so sauna is very popular there. And actually, from that region of the world, there's actually several studies showing that because they do that on a regular basis, those people that do it do have a tendency to live longer.
What's a good starting point time-wise? How long should it stay?
How long? It depends on temperature. Okay, so it depends on the unit. Like my unit is not very expensive, and it only gets up to about 135 degrees, so which is not real hot. Some infrared systems will get up to 175. So yeah, so if you can do 175, I can tell you within 20 minutes you're done. Okay,
Literally.
yeah, done. Yeah,
Stick a fork in
okay,
it.
well done. Okay, so not burnt hopefully, but well done. Where mine, it takes longer, so it takes me 40 minutes to get up to that temperature. You know, to 101 at least. So I'm going over to 101. So I do it 5 days a week, and so it is very popular in Scandinavia countries.
You have the one with your head out or in?
So I do one, actually I'm inside, and I chose that because I actually concentrate and do part of my meditation and concentrate and breathe in that heat into my lungs. I also drink coffee while I'm in there too, or hot tea, because I want to heat up my core temperature, and it helps out with about a half degree temperature faster, you know, by that 40 minutes. So I'm at my temperature a little bit faster by heating up my core body. So versus the one where your head is outside, it just takes longer to heat up that way. But it could be done, yes. And
The Serene Life, there's one inside, there's one.
yes, that's correct. They've got one inside and outside. Matter of fact, you have to be careful that if you are a gentleman that's 300 pounds, that Serene Life will not work. Okay?
They have an oversized one, I think.
Yeah, they have an oversized one. That one would work, yes. So you have to get the bigger one. And what I like about that particular one is I looked at the size of the heating panels. And so some of them have smaller panels. That one's a bigger panel. Or, you know, therefore would not be as good, maybe not heat up as good. How to drink coffee. So, you know, coffee is one of my favorite things. I have several podcasts and blogs and guides about that. So I do drink coffee. I drink 2 to 3 mugs a day. And I drink a couple of mugs of matcha tea every day. And I drink water. And so, matter of fact, the best way, if you have cancer concerns, I like to put cloves in that also. Cloves have anti-cancer activities too.
The whole clove?
The whole cloves. Matter of fact, I put 4 or 5 in my mug, and every day. Thoughts on eat right for your blood type approach for food? That is something I did back in the 1999 or 2000. Was Eat Right for Your Blood Type by Dr. Diadamos, I believe is his name. I did start with that, and actually that's when I stopped eating dairy, milk products, and wheat products, and I started feeling so much better. And so that's what really jump-started my healing from some rheumatoid arthritis issues. And I started feeling so much better. No, I didn't have to take allergy pills, no more aching. So it could be some good information. I'm not sure how accurate it is for each type of a blood type. So, but I did remove those 2 type of foods, and it's because I was having some allergic reactions or sensitivities to those foods.
Quickly, everybody calls here and says, I got inflammation real bad. I heard hyperbarics will work. And I go, yeah, it does. I got a question. Do you eat bread? Mm-hmm. And they go, well, yeah, everybody eats bread. And I said, well, that's why you hurt. If you'll quit eating bread, you won't have to spend money on hyperbarics a lot of times.
A lot of times.
Now, if you want to do both while you're weaning off bread, I'd love to have you as a client, and you'll learn so many more things while you're in the chamber. Because when they tell me that, they have no education.
They just don't know yet.
They don't know anything yet. And so that's why the community here in the chamber is so beneficial, is you better bring a notepad with you, because you're going to get hammered in the chamber with all the things that will change your life.
Right.
It's not just hyperbarics.
That's right.
Quit eating bread.
So the bread, so we can't get by without bread. I don't eat much bread.
I don't eat
You know, I occasionally may have some, but you know, the wheat that's grown in the United States is wrong. It's not the original wheat. Matter of fact, now I'm in my late 60s. I've seen the evolution of wheat. Used to, you know, wheat grew. It was like 3 foot tall. Now it's not even 2 foot out in the pasture, and so it's different. They've genetically, they've bred it and or genetically modified it.
And the head is that tall
And
instead of that tall.
Totally different now. You know, and it's even different than what they do in Europe. And so there could be some better bred products, but let me tell you, I can testify, you can live without bread. Mm-hmm. Okay, we don't have to have bread. As a matter of fact, last night we actually fixed a hamburger. So that person is talking about the hamburger. We fixed a hamburger, on greens.
Yeah. Oh, I wrap it in lettuce all the time. That's how my hamburger bun is a lettuce wrap.
Yeah.
But anyway, the other thing is pasta. I mean, you got to expand on that.
Exactly.
Anything that uses grain, don't eat it, and your inflammation will a lot of times go away on its own.
Amazing how much better I feel without that. So is alkaline water good for cancer treatment? I assess, don't guess. We need to do a saliva and urine pH test. If you're acidic, yes, alkaline water could help. But if you're not acidic, alkaline water may not be needed. So it depends on the person. Everybody's different. And so, matter of fact, I have people in the same house, and one person's going to be acidic and the other person's not, because each person's different, and their digestion and their gut is going to be different on that. So, and then the last question, ivermectin to get rid of parasites. So ivermectin does have anti-parasite actions, yes. So I give it to my horses, my dog, my cat, and then I do take it also. So I think that's about it.
Well, Keith, again, thank you for bringing all your clients to us. I mean, you've got a tremendous following. You've earned it. You've worked your buns off to educate people. You've got such resources on your website. Mm-hmm. I encourage everybody out there listening, if you haven't been on that website, there's so much free information. And how many people I talk to every day, when I'm at church, people come up and they start asking me questions, and I go, have you researched it at all? And they go, what do you mean? I ask my doctor. Well, doctors are great, but a lot of doctors have no knowledge of the things that we're talking about. They just never were taught
Right.
in their school.
And they don't have time.
And they don't. And that's just not in their purview. So you got to go out there, get on some of these social, the YouTubes, the Googles, and there's a lot of other, get on chat and just ask questions. Now you've got something to ask your doctor that's a little more dialed in, and ask him to give you an answer. Have him, there's a way he uses research as well, and he can give you an answer. So educate yourself. It's so important.
Yeah, just like this. You're
Yep.
paying attention to this.
Yep.
You're learning.
Yep. So Keith with PrevailOverCancer.com. Thank you again for being here. And this is Paul with Hyperbaric.plus, not .com, .plus. When I saw that URL extension and that was my name, I just had to take it. And Betty, thank you again. Yes. Betty is always working in the background, and she keeps us dialed in. We only ran 5 minutes late today, so that's awesome. And so thank you all for being here. Look forward to seeing you next week, and we're going to talk about, we talked about what is it we're talking about next week? Red light therapy. Yeah. Okay. So join us next week for red light therapy and what it can do to killer cells. Yep. All right. Well, thank you again, Keith. Talk to you later.